as John said, I'm Phil McQuade. I'm the Director of Turf Management here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, home of the Colorado Rapids Major League Soccer Club. What I'm going to do is present to you renovations on high-use fields. Our stadium pitch isn't as high a use as the other 24 fields that we have surrounding this stadium. But what I'll do is give you guys an overview and a look at why we have to renovate, and you'll see in these slides coming up why it's necessary for us to renovate these fields, and I'll show you some of our equipment. So let's get started without any further ado. Overhead view of the complex. You can see on my arrow here, this is 6 native soil fields, 4 native soil fields, and 2 synthetic fields, 6 more native soil fields, 5 soil fields, sand-based field where the Colorado Rapids train, and then our stadium field. One of the issues we encounter out here at Dick's Sporting Goods Park in Colorado is we get snow early in the season, and it causes some problems for us. As you can see, I have to plow snow off of the field, so I'm putting undue traffic onto the field. This happened to be the morning of a game that we had that evening. Continued to snow during the game, so I have people out blowing the lines clear on our soccer field, which is probably a little bit crazy to you guys. Just some more pictures of the midline being blown off of our pitch. A good picture for you guys, if you look here on the right side of this picture, this is damage after plowing snow off of the field. We had to plow this field for the U.S. women's national team. This side we did not plow it, and we don't beat up the grass. And like I said, you put a lot of unnecessary traffic on these fields. We also host a concert that we paint 2,400 10 by 10 squares on all 6 of these fields, and the concert goers get to camp on these fields for 3 days. Just a shot, kind of a glory shot of our fields prior to a 2-day music festival. Have all our guys out there mowing the fields, getting the grass cut down, and you'll see here on this next slide, this is the music festival. Down here was our main stage. Over the course of those 2 days on this pod 2 and pod 3, we had 100,000 patrons out on the fields. What we did to kind of combat all of the damage. Yes?
Sorry, please, you have to share your screen, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, goodness.
Happens sometime. No problem, eh?
Yeah, I'm sorry. 1 second. I'm so excited. But I will get it going. I'll run through these real quick for you. Sorry, I'll go back real quick.
Perfect. Full screen, please. Full screen.
Yeah, I gotcha. So excited to show you guys all this stuff. All right, there we go. There's our money shot of the stadium field. An overview of all of our pods. Right here closest is pod 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then pod 4. That's the sand-based training field for the Rapids. As I said, we encounter snow here on our stadium field, which then we do put some undue traffic on these fields, whether it be a utility vehicle and a plow. We do have guys out there with snow shovels clearing the areas, actually blowing the lines off during a game. Just another picture of that. They, believe it or not, did play this game and get it in. Here's the damage, and this is what happens to our Kentucky bluegrass after you plow it. It just beats it up. Some damage there. Over here on the right, we plowed the field. On the left, we did not plow that field. The camping, as I said earlier, on one of the pods where the concert goers get to camp there for 3 days in 2,400 10 by 10 squares. Like I said, a money shot of our guys mowing the pods prior to a 2-day music festival. This is a shot that I think is fairly interesting where you guys caught me. Over on these 3 pods right here, over the 2-day period, we had, I think it was 35 acts out there performing and 100 to 110,000 people out there at various times. And what we did to kind of combat some of the damages is we actually shut the water off onto these pods. So naturally, they're compacting the ground like crazy, and we're going to have to do a major renovation here. And you can see this is the day after this music festival. You can kind of see these little bit of green circles where the irrigation heads do lie. Some damage from putting power cords into the ground for their speakers and whatnot. And kind of a little bit of a comical slide to us. We scraped help on behalf of the grass for us to get a major renovation in. So this next one, on that previous slide, we took this machine, which hooks up to a 3-point hitch on our tractors, and it's an aggravator. And as you can see, these tines are they're not all going straight down, but the bar that rotates these tines vibrate it, and it breaks up and the compaction a little bit more, it fractures it. And then what we would do is go in behind it with this machine right here, a normal aerator, and we did our core aeration following immediately behind that aggravator. But this is one type of equipment that we use to start our renovations. But I'm going to go back a couple of slides and show you a couple other things we use. This is our aerator. It's a knife blade slice tiner, and we have the tines on this one that you see right now are actually our aggressive tines, so they make a little bit wider and thicker cut into the grass itself. We also use what we call a deep tining machine. Here, this is actually parked in our shop right now. We have 10-inch long solid tines. And this, I feel that if we use our deep tine aerator, we can get away with play if it's a younger age group. Certainly wouldn't put this out prior to our Major League Soccer team, the Rapids, because those guys are good high-end athletes. As you guys have your high-end clubs, you don't want to put this out and have the team come and train on it or play on it unless you had a fair amount of recovery time. The other one, this ProCore aerator, when we do these ProCore aerators and the combination of our aggravator, we ask the group that schedules the field to give us a minimum of 21 days for recovery after we finish the whole process. And what we like to do with that whole process within those 21 days is we will come and overseed the grass. And like I said, we have Kentucky bluegrass out here, but we'll overseed the grass, let it sit for a little bit. We'll drag the cores in, and then we always try and time our renovations out with a good fertilization on it. That doesn't always work all the time, just due to the timing and the openings we have in the schedule. But if you can adjust and maybe be a week late or 10 days late on your fertilization, you still get a good result out of this. But now you've seen the ProCore aerator, our deep tine aerator, and our slice aerator. So we have those 3 tools that we use. We also do use a small walk behind aerator in just high traffic small areas. I wanted to show you guys a difference in our blades, these knife blades. This one here on the left is the aggravator, or the aggressive knife blade. It's a little bit thicker. I try on our outside fields on those pods if we have a break of 3 or 4 days where there's play or not play, I'm sorry, we'll take this out, and I feel confident that we can use this knife on the left, or if we have a little bit of break from our professional team, we'll take this out and put these knife blades on it, a much less aggressive blade on there, and slice it open. Because in reality, just so you guys understand what I try and tell the user groups or the scheduling groups and the professional team is, imagine if somebody put a plastic bag over your head and sealed it up around your neck. You can't breathe, you're not getting air, you're not getting water. But if we poke one hole in that bag, you're going to be able to survive a little bit longer. But if I poke 100 holes in the bag, you're definitely going to be able to survive. But if I poke 1,000 holes, you're going to start to thrive. If I poke 1,000,000 holes in it, you're going to thrive even more and more. And so that's the necessity of having good renovation processes within your complex, your single field, your 20 fields, whatever it may be. So having renovation windows, as I call them, is extremely, extremely important, almost as important as the fertilization of your turf grass. But these are two different knives that we use on our airway slice aerator. Now, the orange aerator that I showed you, these are 10-inch solid and hollow tines. The hollow tines, it scares you when you use, and when I use these deep solid tines, taking 10 inches of soil out. Normally when we do this out at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, we will do this and collect all of the spoils out. And what we're trying to do is, I typically only do this on our sand-based fields, but when we do this, we collect and sweep up all of those plugs that we pulled out of the ground. And I want to come back in and put USGA grade sand, greens grade sand in there to fill those holes that were left, the chimneys that were left in there. Reason being for that is I don't want to have too much organic matter build up in the soil, which then you start losing your drainage and you get compact a little bit quicker. So we will use these hollow tines maybe once a year, not always. But if I feel we still need to get to drive our roots down a little bit more, I'll go over here to the solid tines and do the same thing, not necessarily filling it back up with the USGA greens grade sand. So we have a couple different options with it. Same thing, you still need time for that grass and the grounds to recover before putting a high-end soccer team or soccer club on that. So two examples of our deep tines. And now here are the other tines that we use on that Procore aerator. And these are bayonet tines. The one on the left is a bayonet tine, and I have another slide right next to it for you guys. But the bayonet tine is about 6 inches deep. And the reason we use this, it looks very similar to the knife blades on the airway, but the airway, you're only getting the openings every probably 8 to 10 inches, whereas with these bayonet tines and the one next to it here, this cross tine, you imagine it looks like a plus symbol or a cross. Those are solid ones. And when we aerate those fields, our goal is to have on 2-inch centers, we're poking holes. So it's more aggressive. You can open it up a little bit more. And for our outside user groups, whether it's an adult league soccer team playing, I feel comfortable doing this and allowing those people to play on those that night. I do use extra caution when it comes to the professional team. And then this next tine over here is just a miniature version of the big 10-inch hollow tine where we're actually pulling cores out of the ground. So here's this other picture so you can see that bayonet tine. And this one really does go about 6, maybe 7 inches into the ground, and a little up close of this cross tine. So that's what we do. And like I said, we're always trying to plan this around our fertilization of our outside fields, our 21 outside soil fields. Here is a picture, and this actually happens to be on the Rapids training field. And if you look over here on the right, you're going to get the best view. And this is kind of a slow motion video of our deep solid tines in action. And I'll try not to talk too much for you, but you can see how deep in the ground we're getting. And those tines are just moving back a couple of inches. So we're really putting a lot of holes into this practice field. Is 110,000 square feet. So we're doing this. It takes us approximately 3 hours to do that one field. So you can imagine if I was to do the 6 fields on the outside with this, and we have done it in spots where we have really compacted areas, such as like the goalkeeper area, or we host lacrosse at our complex, and their goalkeeper area is very beat up and compacted. And so here's going to be another video for you guys. And this happens to be our bayonet tines. And I actually just did this on our stadium field 2 weeks ago. But I'll show you this video, and you'll have to look to the left side on this one to get a real good video of it. And this one starts a little bit slower, but you'll see, look on the left side of this aerator once we get going. And here, just in a couple of seconds, I'll drop it down into the ground, and you can see it's starting to kick up some of that thatchy layer even before I put it into the ground. But you'll see some of the tufts of thatch coming out once I do set this into the ground. And we're going approximately 1.5 miles an hour when we do this. And so, like I said, this happens to be on our stadium field, and that field is 105,000 square feet. You can kind of see the thatch layers on the third head over, just a little line of them there, just pulling that grass out and allowing it to breathe a little bit more. And that's the goal of our renovations, is that we have so much stuff programmed on these fields that they get compacted. It's very hard to keep a good stand of grass growing with all of this. It's just a picture. We were actually core aerating this field, probably running a little bit short of time as far as our renovation window goes. So we decided to put two tractors out there to cut our time in half. Instead of the 2.5, 3 hours, we were probably done in an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. And this is the airway slicer. If you can see here on the left, we have a little utility vehicle right here. It's hooked up to, it's hydraulic. You can raise and lower it where you need to go overheads or valve boxes, various things like that. And this is what I wanted to really show you guys, is the crazy number of hours. Now, if you see on this chart, keep in mind that number 8 and number 10 are our synthetic fields. So obviously they're going to have much more hours of play on it. And if you look back to 2014 on field 1, we almost had 500 hours of play. You can kind of take 2020 out of the mix of hours. As you guys all know, we had the COVID ordeal, so those hours are not in line with anything else we've had. But my goal is to get, we went from, in 2014, 451 hours, to 2019, 373 hours. I would like to reduce those number of hours even more. That gives us more time in order to renovate, maybe grow in some grass seed, that type of stuff after renovation. And I'm sure all of you guys deal with this same problem, is the overscheduling, the over-programming of fields. And what I'll do next is show you what we're trying to do to help alleviate that problem and alleviate very, very high impact areas of the soccer field. So you'll see here, what we've done is we've taken drone pictures of our fields, and you can see here in the middle, every soccer coach, whether it's a 8 and under soccer team coach or the professional team coach, they're going to do everything right in the middle of your fields. So that grass gets weaker, your standard grass is weaker, you don't have time to renovate it so they can still train on it, play their games on it or whatever whenever they warm up. But typically, and we've seen this time and time again, is outside of the 18-yard boxes, outside of the 18-yard boxes is typically your better stands of grass. So you try and drive these teams and coaches and players out there to alleviate some of the wear in the middle of the fields. And then what we have done with our professional teams is we've painted just 6-yard boxes right next to the training field in order for them to do their warm-up areas and not beat up the goal mouse. And now down here in this 6-yard box proper, we're beat up and we have to renovate and replace sod. So we're trying to coach the coaches up on where to train and have their practices to help lessen the amount of renovations we have to do. And you can see right here in particular, the middle of all these fields, very worn. So we're trying, and it's just that diamond wear pattern, and eventually they'll start to understand when their fields become better and better. Just some more pictures, same thing. This is where our development academy for the professional team, the Rapids, they train here, and they train in the middle of all their fields all the time. Then they ask us, how come they're dirt? Well, we don't get a chance to go back in and renovate like we should, because their season typically runs from middle of April to the middle of October. So coaching the coaches up on where to train and practice is a huge element of our renovation process. And you can see in this red oval where the darker patches of sod are, we've had to, in my opinion, waste money on resodding centers of fields, when in reality, if they would have moved out and done things right and trained on the outside, we wouldn't have to do any of the resod. Just some more pictures of the diamond pattern. And the other examples of wear, and I have found that if we do not paint that penalty kick dot or line or whatever it is that you use, you don't get kids at the end of practice or at warm-ups sitting there taking penalty kicks. And now we have to renovate that area, whether it's with a new chunk of sod or seeding it and doing our walk behind aerator through it and top dressing it. So unless it's an actual tournament, we will not paint these PK dots. Another example here in our stadium field is our field advertising boards got set down way early in the day, hot summer day here, 95, 98 degrees, and the metal foot burned that. Now I have another weak spot on the field that is in need of a renovation. And you can see on just to the right of this, kind of the lines from a previous aeration on this field. And then when I was talking about the lacrosse, here's an example of a lacrosse goal mouth. This was actually 2 games on our stadium field, and they wore that completely out. is hard, and you have to coach people up on it to either lower the amount of renovations you have to have, or educate them enough so you don't have to resod and can get away with seeding it through behind a walk behind core aerator. Another example, and this is at our development academies training field, the goalkeeper coach would not move out of this 6-yard box and couldn't understand why it was muddy and a disaster. Yet if you look over here, all he had to do was move over there. So now this renovation that we have to do here was an actual resod, like I showed you guys on one of the previous slides. And it's as a turf manager, I think it's our job to help educate the coaches and the players to help themselves out. Everybody wants to play in a soccer field where the grass is nice and thick and lush and beautiful like this, but they don't listen, and we get this. Now we have to do a major renovation, whether it's shallow, not as deep aeration, seeding, sodding, the whole works. Now this field happens to be out of play for a little bit of time. Well, we fix it and get it back to a safe condition. And that's another big thing, is that you need to let all of your user groups know that these renovations are important to keep your fields, their fields in reality, safe and playable. And like I was just saying, we really do all have the same goal. It's to provide a safe playing surface, number one, and number two, something that is very aesthetically pleasing to the eye for your fans or your parents or whoever happens to be there watching. But this is the end product when this high-end stadium game field does not have a lot of play on it. This is what myself and the rest of you guys can provide for the user groups. It's something like this. There might be some spots in there that are a little bit weak, but if you do the renovations, whether it's deep tine, the shallow tines, the knives, timing it with fertilization, adding extra seed, we dormant seed or quite often. Our crew just put out 50-pound bags of seed, and we're getting ready to go into dormancy here. But the reason we do this is part of a renovation practice that come in the springtime. The soil heats up, that bluegrass will germinate and be ready to go, hopefully in time for them to start. But that's really all I have for you guys as renovations. I'm hoping that you'll ask me lots and lots of questions. It's easier to answer the questions than stop through the slides, but I am more than happy to answer some questions with you guys.